Seb Gorka joining us now on the show. All right, guys, I'm so happy to have my friend Seb Gorka on the show. He is host of America First with Seb Gorka. It's on Salem Radio, live on Rumble every single day from 3 to 6, right? I have that right? And then you're on Newsmax every single weekend on Sundays from 7 to 10.
7 and 10. 7
and 10. I mean, like, I don't know how you sleep, but that's Seb for you. It's good to see you.
Great to see you. It's been too long.
I want to bring you on today because I'm seeing a lot of things that I think are very encouraging. I do think that Donald Trump stands every shot of winning this. I think that the polls are sort of miscalculated and that they aren't actually showing as much enthusiasm as it's out there. I look at Polymarket and some of the other, prediction market sites, et cetera, out there, and you're seeing this momentum for Donald Trump. But I'm also a realist. And as I look at some of the things that Elon Musk is tweeting, Seb, he's very concerned about this not being 1,000% on the up and up. And I know we have to be very careful with this, but what are the landmines that people should be worried about right now?
Well, look, God bless Elon Musk. God bless him for taking the very active role he's taken. He's a brave man. I was right there, literally in the row behind him at Butler, Pennsylvania, when President Trump invited him on stage. But okay, so first things first, this isn't about 2020 or what happened last time. The Democrats have a record of shenanigans. I'd like people to understand, in 1960, Joe Kennedy bought the votes of the dead for JFK in Chicago, in Baltimore. I mean, you name it. I have traveled the world as you have. There is no developed nation that makes national jokes about one of their parties having the dead vote. It's only here in America. So we have to deal with this, and we've had to deal with this for the last 80 years. Now, if you look at the trend lines, you look at people we can trust when it comes to polling, the likes of Rich Barris from People's Pundit, the likes of Trafalgar and Robert Cahaley, who will be on my Newsmax show this Sunday, the trend lines are fantastic. I'm a conservative. I want to vote on election day. I want to fill in my ballot and put it into the ballot box. But we're never going to win. The patriots aren't going to save America from the depth of socialism if we only vote on election day. It's mathematically impossible. In one of the states out west, there is a 4-page ballot that takes 20 minutes to fill out. You can't have 80 million people vote with 4-page ballots that take 20 minutes each on election day. We have to change the rules, God willing, once we win. But like Virginia, where I live, which allegedly has a conservative governor, we have 45 stinking days of voting. It is insane. However, the good news is empirical. My wife is now the chair of the Fairfax County GOP, the biggest county in Virginia. Our voting started three weeks ago. She was there. First day voting, it was scores and scores of Trump voters with Trump flags, stars and stripes, nary a Democrat in sight. Early voting figures have a 200 to 220% increase over the last time, mostly in rural Republican areas. That is not how Republicans do it, but we're starting to beat them at their game. However,
it is so important. I know a lot of people, you can't take your ball and go home. I'm sorry, no matter what. You know what? We're in this because we care. And there was a lot of pessimism after 2020 and people, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, no. This is how the game is played. So let's just play it better, smarter. And that's why I was so happy to see Lara come in at the RNC, because she got that, right? And I know, and listen, I like to take the kids to vote and we make a big thing of it. It was what my parents did with me, and we have a little civics lesson in the process. But the reality is exactly what you're saying. If you really want to win, you got to think about getting those early voters in there. You got to have some ground game, because they got ground game going on for days, right? They have been so organized about this and organized for years. And I'm excited to see exactly what you're talking about. I looked at the numbers out of Virginia, and it's really amazing when you think about how they've been able to whittle down the advantage that historically has gone to Democrats on early voting. We're seeing the same. I talked to Dave Bosse, who's on the bus out in Pennsylvania right now, and he was telling me, Trish, like, we have whittled this down on this early voting. They used to have a rather massive advantage. It's been cut more than in half there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so let's be clear. Let me explain to you why every patriot needs to vote early, even if you don't want to. When you vote early, your name, nobody is allowed to know how you voted, but the fact that you voted is communicated to President Trump's campaign and to the Republican Party. And if you're a registered Republican who's voted Republican for the last 4 elections, we know who you voted for. You are therefore crossed off the list, which means they don't have to chase you down. If you vote early, that vote costs them in terms of advertising $8. If you wait until election day, it costs President Trump $100 to make sure that you voted. You're saving President Trump tens of millions of dollars, tens of thousands of hours of man hours on the campaign. They're not knocking on your door. They're not bugging you with emails, and your vote is banked. Secondly, you have to make sure the mathematics of it works. Now, here's the one concern. This is from Dan, from my buddy Dan Bongino, who said it this morning. We, you, me, all the people who have a platform have to make sure the MSM, the mainstream media, calls the vote as soon as it is empirically sure. When we know that all the votes are enough in Florida, in Pennsylvania, that no matter how many of the outlying registered voters haven't been counted yet, even if Kamala gets all of them, she can't win. They have to call that state for President Trump. The longer they don't call it, right? The longer we leave it for them, then that's how they generate votes. That's how they find, quote unquote, find votes. So it's looking good. The battleground states, Cahaly, Barris, it's 6-1 in the battleground states as to who is winning. It's President Trump. However, we can't have we don't know. Remember what Bret Baier said on that ominous night when they called Arizona early. I was watching it, and he says at 10:30, I think we're going to stop the coverage because we won't know till morning. Hang on a second. President Trump, and you can't call the election? No. You can't create the sphere of mobility for the Democrat-run cities in those states to say, oh my gosh, we need another 10,000 votes. Find the votes, curate the votes. This is the crucial aspect. We have mobilized conservatives like we've never done before to vote early, but we have to make sure that when it is empirically impossible for her to win, the mainstream media calls it for President Trump. And the other thing is, everybody has to go to Trump Force 47 right now. If you don't go to TrumpForce47.com, you are literally working for Kamala Harris. It is a genius system where you are given the names, the addresses, the emails of 10 softer Republican voters who live near you, and you can call them up, send them an email. Hey, John, I saw you at the grocery store yesterday. Have you voted yet? If every single one of your viewers activates 10 conservatives around them, it's going to be like the president says, too big rig.
Tell us the name again.
TrumpForce47.com. It's not a donation site. You don't have to give any money. You become a captain in the president's team, TrumpForce47.com. You give them your zip. They tell you, okay, here's 10 Republicans who live close to you. Would you email them? Would you text them? Would you give them a call and say, hey, Betty, have you voted yet? If you do that with the lower propensity Republicans, it is mathematically impossible for Kamala to win. And look, her campaign is cratering right now. When you have the podium speech from the Naval Observatory that he's Hitler, you don't do that if your campaign is winning, Trish.
Oh my gosh, I know. And by the way, they've already tried that. Like they've been doing that now for years. They've tried everything, and they're just going back to the same old playbook. But she said something the other day that kind of made me stop. I want to play you this. It's just like a 9-second clip, and she's talking about what's going to happen in November. I want to hear your reaction to this, Seb, because I don't know, it made me stop and think, what are they really, really, really up to here?
Because some people find it humorous what he says and think it's just silly, but understand how brutally serious it is. Well, the courts will take care of that. We'll take care of November. Yes. We'll take care of November. But it is brutally serious because to the Congresswoman's point,
okay, she goes on and on. But, if you hear that, if you listen in there, she said, we'll take care of that. The courts will take care of that. We'll take care of November. The one part of me is like, okay, maybe I'm thinking out of context. Maybe all she meant by this was, if he tries to not concede the election, we'll take care of that. The courts will take care of that. But it gives me a minute, it makes me stop and pause. And that's why I'm glad you're saying what you're saying about the early voting mattering so much.
Well, it's not just her, it was Biden. Biden said exactly the same thing this week. He said, we've got to lock him up. And then he said, he shouldn't have said that out loud. And said, we've got to lock him up politically. Yeah, right, because that's a thing, right? Or is that a political prisoner? Is that what you mean, Joe? Look, we know the truth. He's facing 730 years in prison. Right? We've got him being called a dictator, a Hitlerian, and people. I mean, look, what Kamala tweeted 2 days ago was basically the green light for another assassination. He is a threat to the nation. What, like North Korea, like Iran? I mean, it's Larry Elder's, my Salem colleague, Larry Elder's great line. If you call a politician Hitler for 10 years, what do you think's going to happen? Well, what do you think some crazy person's going to do? Once, twice? People don't realize this is in the unclassified domain. There have been 5 attempts against his life, not half with Coachella. 5 attempts that we can speak of in the low side domain. A Canadian lunatic, a Trudeau fan, mailed ricin, the biological agent, to President Trump's home. This is what the left have normalized, Trish.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening. I mean, if he wins, do we go back to normal, or do you believe what Mark Halpern has been saying? Like, they're going to be so upset, it's going to get crazier and crazier. If he wins, I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, finally, the people will back off." And I'm like, I don't know if that's the case. I feel like the genie's been let out of the bottle, and I'm worried. I'm worried about the country. Frankly, either way, if he doesn't win, then people are going to say, wait a second, one just went down. If he does win, I think you're going to get the same thing from the other side. So we're kind of in a bad spot.
Yeah, I'm sure you do the same. I do a lot of interviews for international media, and I get the European news agencies coming to interview me, and they always say the same questions. It's like they would, issue the script from DNC headquarters. They say, What happens if your former boss wins? Will there be another January? If he loses, will there be another January 6th? And I say, hang on a second. January 6th was 4 hours of rioting that got out of hand that we still don't know the real genesis of. My worry isn't if President Trump loses. My concern is what happens if he wins, because the left, the summer of love with BLM, with Antifa, with $3 billion worth of arson and damage, and 40 people murdered, the church of the president's firebombed a block from the White House. That's going to look like a pleasant summer picnic with cucumber sandwiches. The left are in the idea that because think of this, President Trump comes back, constitutionally, he's limited to 1 term, which means what, Trish? If he has the Senate and the House and we have the White House, he doesn't have to compromise with anybody. He can actually drain the swamp. Elon can come in. He can completely reform government. We can get the special interests out of the defense industry, big pharma, you name it. So the threat to the livelihoods of the corrupt swamp creatures, this is why he's an existential threat to the establishment, because President Trump is the only guy who can actually clean out the Stygian stables that is Washington, D.C.
I want to just remind everybody, they can listen to your show. They can watch your show live every day on Rumble. They can get a lot of your information via your Substack, sebastiangorka.substack.com. You must follow him on Twitter at Seb Gorka. Seb, it's going to be a wild few days. What's your gut telling you? Is he going to win this thing?
Look, predictions are for suckers, because nobody's held to the predictions. Nobody's going to, you aren't going to come to me, 13 days from now and say, Gorka, you got it wrong. I'll say the following: if it's a clean election, if the shenanigans are within a certain limit, and the election were today, we could have a blowout Mondale v. Reagan kind of victory. But we've got 11 days to go. And we know they've been trying desperately. I mean, this story in The Guardian that was allegedly pitched at all the swamp creature, the sewer rats here in the mainstream media who wouldn't take it because it was such an egregious lie. The reheating of that scum traitor, General Kelly's statements from 2 years ago as if it's new news. They're desperate. They will try to take him out politically, informationally, or worse. But right now, all I'll say is, this is what the best pollsters say, the trend lines are in President Trump's favor.
Wow. All right, Seb, we're going to be watching. I'll be talking to you some more over the next few weeks at Seb Gorka on Twitter. Thank you so much.
And don't forget, if you want to really know how bad it is, my muse, Katie, has a brand new book, Next Gen Marxism, with Mike Gonzalez. You want to get Katie on to tell you how deep this thing is and what it's going to take to beat it. Next Gen Marxism.
All right, we'll bring her on. We'll bring her on. Congrats to Katie on that. Thank you, Seb. Wow. My thanks to Seb, and we will get Katie on that. That'll be an interesting book to talk about. And, look, it's a wild time. It's a wild time. One of the things that Seb said there, guys, which I think is really important, he said that, the left is just going back to the well, going back to the well, going back to the well. They got the Kelly stuff that they brought back up. Hillary Clinton is trying to tell you how much of a threat he is. It's very interesting because this is all kind of old news. Like, they've tried it all before. And it's not mattering. So I think this is really creating a sense of panic